In a room filled with centuries of tradition and power, King Charles dropped a thunderbolt. Without warning or ceremony, he stripped Camilla of her official duties and in the same breath handed the mantle to Catherine. The gasps weren't just heard inside the palace walls, they echoed across the monarchy. But what drove this stunning shift? And why now? Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The silence that followed was unlike anything ever felt inside Windsor's hallowed halls. Courtiers stood frozen, their faces caught between disbelief and dread. No one dared move, no one dared breathe. The king's tone had been resolute calm,
with his
yes,
recent
but
battle with
absolute.
cancer.
There was no room for negotiation, no window for reversal. For years, Camilla had navigated
his
royal
doctors
life with
urged
calculated
rest.
ease, her presence carefully woven into the monarchy's public image. Yet, in a single moment, that tapestry was torn apart, threads unraveling in the flicker of the king's gaze.
It will feel like failure.
Charles's
said
words
quietly.
weren't delivered in anger. They were colder than that, controlled, deliberate, and heavy, with something far more final than fury. Camilla's expression told a story no royal
The king was
communique
silent
ever
for a
would.
moment, his gaze
Her
lost
lips
in the
parted
flames.
slightly as if to protest, but the words never came. The weight of the king's decree pressed down on her like the very crown she once dreamed of wearing with pride. For the first time, she looked not like the queen consort of a modern monarchy, but like a woman
Perhaps you're
blindsided
right,
by the
he
man
whispered.
she believed stood
They are ready.
unshakably in her corner.
The country already
Across the
see-
table, Catherine sat poised, her face composed yet unreadable. There was no triumph, no visible satisfaction, only a quiet acknowledgement of what this moment symbolized. She had not asked for this power, yet destiny had delivered it, and she carried it with the dignity the moment demanded. Whispers rippled through the air, soft as silk and sharp as knives. Aides exchanged uneasy glances, their loyalties suddenly blurred. Every royal staff member knew that this wasn't just an adjustment of roles. This was an execution of trust, a reshaping of hierarchy within the royal court. Behind
just like
those
that,
gilded walls,
the decision
centuries
was
of
made.
order were being rewritten in real time. It wasn't just about duties, it was about allegiance, legacy, and survival. The king's decision had been immediate, but the tension had been years in the making, building
A
slowly
child's
beneath
there!
layers of civility and
Careful.
ceremonial smiles. Charles's eyes swept across the room, lingering for a brief moment on Catherine. It wasn't a command, it was an acknowledgement. She understood, perhaps more than anyone else, the burden that came with such an elevation. Where Camilla had been outspoken and assertive, Catherine embodied restraint and composure. Her silence that day wasn't submission, it was strategy. Those who
Formed a
underestimated
small
her
circle
calmness
around the
mistook
scene.
it for fragility, never realizing that her strength lay in her quiet endurance. Now, that patience had found its reward,
And as Catherine and
though it
William
came
stood
wrapped
together,
in tension and
hands
unease.
clasped tightly,
Outside those private walls, the world remained unaware of what had just occurred. The press still carried on with their daily speculations. The public still believed the royal family was
the moment
united
that
in
was
harmony.
meant to mark the start of their new
But
chapter
inside Windsor,
had changed
something
everything.
irreversible had begun. The air was different now, heavier, charged, as if the very foundation of the monarchy had shifted. The courtiers
few
who
tried
had
to
once
comfort
whispered
Jane's
behind
husband,
closed
who had
doors
been
now
standing
moved with
farther
caution,
back.
aware that even the slightest misstep could end a career or expose a secret. Camilla sat in silence long after the meeting had ended, her thoughts circling like trapped birds. Every past
No one
conversation,
cheered or
every
waved.
decision she had made, seemed to echo back at her in accusation. There had been warnings, small signs that Charles's patience was thinning, that Catherine's growing influence was no longer just
By the
tolerated
time William and
but
Catherine
quietly
stepped inside,
encouraged.
Rose had
Yet she
already
had
been
dismissed
taken to the
them,
emergency.
believing her years beside him had earned immunity from royal consequence. That illusion had shattered now, leaving her stranded between humiliation and disbelief. Catherine, meanwhile, left the room not as a victor but as a symbol of transition. The weight of the king's trust now rested on her shoulders,
William remained
and
standing
she carried
close
it with
by,
both grace and
his
fear.
tone quiet
For all her
and
poise,
steady.
she knew this decision would not remain secret for long. The monarchy was a world of whispers, and whispers had a way of becoming storms. And though she had never sought to dethrone Camilla, She understood that perception would soon do that for her.
Children do
As the
that.
heavy palace
They
doors
get
closed
excited,
behind her, the
especially
sound
at moments
echoed
like
through
these.
corridors that had witnessed centuries of betrayal, redemption, and royal reinvention. What began as a quiet reshuffling of duties would soon ignite a crisis of loyalty unlike any the modern monarchy had ever faced.
Catherine said,
For
smiling
now,
faintly.
the storm was
They were
silent,
beautiful.
but it was
For a
already
while-
gathering beyond the marble walls, waiting for its moment to break. But what the world didn't see that day were the events quietly unraveling for weeks, whispers, betrayals, and a growing royal divide that had long threatened to explode.
Next time,
It
promise
wasn't
me
an
you'll
overnight
let your mom
decision.
stay beside
For
you,
months,
all right?
something darker simmered beneath royal smiles. Camilla and Catherine were locked in a battle neither could afford to lose. This wasn't about tiaras or titles. It was about influence, and only one woman would emerge with the crown's trust. Behind palace gates, a cold war unfolded in silence. There were no outbursts, no public disagreements, but those who understood the language of power saw it clearly. It began with subtle gestures, Camilla brushing past Catherine without acknowledgement at a state function, or Catherine choosing to arrive precisely 1 minute before Camilla at a memorial where arrival order meant perceived rank. These moves were never discussed aloud, but each was meticulously calculated. Camilla's smiles grew thinner, Catherine's grace more deliberate. At first it seemed petty, harmless even, but soon the divide widened into something no amount of royal protocol could disguise. The press, always hungry for a rift, began to lean in. Yet strangely, it wasn't the tabloids who first noticed it was the broadsheets. Catherine, once painted as dutiful but dull, was suddenly being described in glowing terms, stateswoman-like, composed, a future queen ready today. The contrast was glaring, especially to Camilla, who saw the shift not as praise for Catherine, but as a quiet dismantling of her own image. While she attended engagements with a stiff smile and tightening circle of loyal aides, Catherine's coverage surged. Photographs captured her speaking confidently with world leaders, comforting grieving families, radiating a presence that transcended protocol. To outsiders, it looked natural. To Camilla, it felt orchestrated. And perhaps it was. Catherine's moves were never loud, but always intentional. Her choice of charities, her carefully timed appearances, her sudden re-emergence on causes once championed by the late Queen Elizabeth, all of it was surgical. Where Camilla had been bold, Catherine was strategic. Her silence became her weapon, her calm a kind of challenge. It wasn't revenge, not openly, but it was certainly a message. She would not be sidelined. The palace, of course, pretended all was well, but the walls heard everything. Aides close to each woman found themselves pulled into the quiet struggle, navigating whispered accusations and carefully coded instructions. Invitations began arriving with names omitted. Schedules overlapped, sometimes suspiciously. At least one senior aide reportedly requested reassignment after being placed in the middle of a loyalty conflict that left them shaken. No one said it outright, but it became clear there were now 2 courts within the monarchy, and only one would survive. Media. Leaks began to surface. Anonymous quotes describing icy tensions and competitive roles. Some came from sources close to Catherine, others from loyalists tied to Camilla. But what rattled the palace wasn't the content, it was the timing. These weren't coincidences, they were salvos. A PR Cold War waged through headlines and whispers. Still, Charles remained publicly neutral, but those closest to him knew he was watching, and not idly. Camilla, feeling her grip loosening, began to voice private frustrations. Conversations once kept behind closed doors now reached his ears. Each complaint layered with unease and urgency. Charles, ever the strategist, said little. He neither defended nor reprimanded, but his silence wasn't apathy, it was calculation. He was waiting, watching how each woman moved her pieces across the royal chessboard. And while Camilla attempted to appeal to history, to the weight of her title, Catherine let the public decide for themselves. The Queen, consort may have held the crown, but it was Catherine who began to wear the people's trust. Yet, even as this tension brewed, The king watched closely until one secret dossier landed on his desk, turning observation into action. It arrived sealed in crimson wax, an internal intelligence brief detailing Camilla's behind-the-scenes maneuvers. What King Charles read that evening confirmed his worst fear. His queen wasn't just misstepping, she was sabotaging the crown's future from within. The file was discreetly handed to Charles by a senior aide, one known for loyalty above ambition. It wasn't light reading. Inside, a dossier thicker than any state memo, compiled over months, traced patterns the king had tried to dismiss as rumor. But here, in ink and affidavit, were the raw truths he could no longer ignore. At the top, a series of incidents detailing Camilla's interference with key diplomatic events. Catherine's scheduled appearances at Commonwealth forums that were mysteriously cancelled at the last minute, replaced by Camilla's own engagements without clear explanation. It was more than coincidence. These were strategic blockades, designed to eclipse Catherine's rising role on the world stage. Worse still were the transcripts, leaked emails and intercepted phone logs pointing to Camilla's ongoing contact with certain media figures known for stirring royal scandal. While the palace worked tirelessly to maintain a united front, she had allegedly been feeding whispers to select outlets, crafting a narrative that subtly undermined Catherine's image while shielding her own. It wasn't outright slander, but the manipulation was clear. Charles had always known his wife to be politically savvy, but this was something different. This was palace warfare waged through ink and inference. Tucked between these damning reports was a confidential memo from a Commonwealth envoy, unmistakably critical of Camilla's behavior during a closed-door session in Nairobi. The tone was diplomatic, but the frustration was evident. She had dismissed protocol, spoken over officials, and reportedly referred to Catherine's contributions as window dressing. Other envoys echoed similar sentiments. They viewed Catherine as the future, a bridge between generations, cultures, and continents. Camilla, by contrast, was seen as clinging to a role never fully accepted beyond Britain's borders. Then came the testimonies from within. Anonymous, but detailed. Palace staff, who had witnessed the Queen Consort bypassing formal channels to influence scheduling, who'd overheard heated conversations about keeping Catherine in her place. One aide claimed Camilla had referred to Catherine as the real threat in a moment of unguarded fury. These voices weren't tabloids or outsiders, they were the very machinery of the monarchy, speaking out through protected corridors. Their accounts painted a pattern of sabotage, one that could no longer be explained away as tension or misunderstanding. But perhaps the most painful inclusion came near the end, a personal letter from William. It wasn't addressed to the king formally, but it was included with quiet permission. In it, he defended his wife not just as a royal, but as a woman relentlessly committed to duty. He wrote of the toll it had taken on her, the quiet tears, the forced composure, the sense of isolation within her own family. He didn't ask for action, he simply asked for acknowledgement. And beneath that letter, in Charles's own hand, was a single sentence scribbled in the margin: "This cannot continue." The decision wasn't made lightly. The implications were enormous, but the facts were irrefutable. The Queen Consort had crossed a line, and in doing so, had jeopardized not just the reputation of her stepdaughter, but the unity of the crown itself. This was no longer a matter of preference, it was a matter of survival. For a moment, then reached for his pen. But the report wasn't just evidence, it was the breaking point. And with his pen trembling, Charles made a historic choice that would redefine the monarchy's future. The palace issued no statement, no formal announcement, yet royal watchers knew something seismic had shifted. Camilla's sudden disappearance from two major events and Catherine's unexpected solo representation sent shockwaves the crown refused to explain. For a monarchy built on pageantry, absence speaks louder than presence. When Camilla's name vanished without comment from the official schedules of two landmark state occasions, it wasn't just an oversight, it was a signal. One day she was slated to preside over a charitable gala. The next, her title was missing. No replacement, no reason. Just a blank space where her presence had been. Within hours, Murmurs turned to speculation, and speculation turned to fire. By the time Catherine stepped onto the same platform in Camilla's place, adorned in silent dignity and surrounded by flashing cameras, the world had already filled in the blanks. Inside the press pens, instructions were quietly delivered. No direct questions. Photographers were warned to avoid any mention of Camilla. The silence wasn't just strategic, it was deafening. This was not the usual ebb and flow of royal scheduling. This was a redirection, a quiet repositioning of power, and the cameras caught everything they were allowed to see. Catherine standing alone, not flanked by her husband or overshadowed by the queen consort, but centered, as if the role had always belonged to her. It didn't end there. The moment that truly ignited the frenzy came days later, during a formal procession at Windsor. Charles and Camilla emerged together, as expected, but it was the king's body language that told the story. Where once he walked in perfect rhythm beside her, now he strode ahead 3 paces forward, uncharacteristically distant. A break in protocol so glaring it couldn't be ignored. Camilla, usually poised and smiling, appeared strained, clutching at decorum like a lifeline. Commentators on both sides of the Atlantic pounced. Was it symbolic? Intentional? Was the monarchy quietly shuffling its own deck without saying a word? Royal analysts dissected every moment. Newspapers reprinted side-by-side comparisons of past and present outings, highlighting the contrast. The Camilla of last month had been central. The Camilla of this week had become peripheral. Meanwhile, Catherine's star rose with almost surgical precision. Solo engagements once reserved for senior queens were now hers alone, and with each one, her confidence deepened, not loud or boastful, but assured. It was as if the institution itself was testing the waters, introducing a shift in leadership without ever having to declare it. But where traditional media treaded carefully, social media did not. Online, the breakdown played out like a drama series. Each image turned into a symbol, each gesture into a narrative. A sidelong glance became betrayal. A missing ring, a forgotten curtsy, a cold stare none escaped scrutiny. The hashtag number #WhereIsCamilla began to trend. Fan accounts turned theorists. Every move, every smile, every pause was analysed, reframed, and fed back into the growing storm. Silence, once a royal strength, now bred chaos. Through it all, the palace remained unyielding. No comments, no corrections, no denials. Just the slow, deliberate turning of the page, one public appearance at a time. The monarchy has always evolved through whispers before it ever dared to speak. And in this chapter, the whispers were louder than ever. Camilla had not been removed, not publicly, but her role was dissolving in real time, replaced by a younger, quieter force. One the public was already beginning to embrace as inevitable. But behind the royal optics, Camilla was spiraling, and Catherine, for the first time, was being coached for a new, unprecedented role. Sources inside Clarence House describe it as a total emotional collapse. Camilla, blindsided and humiliated, reportedly confronted Charles in a moment of fury and heartbreak that left their private chambers in silence and in tears. The confrontation wasn't planned, it was inevitable. Camilla had stayed silent through the public unraveling, hoping it was a temporary reconfiguration, a brief storm to be weathered. But when confirmation reached her official, final, and without appeal, something inside her broke. She didn't ask to speak with Charles, she demanded it. Bursting into the private quarters where once they had whispered promises of loyalty and legacy, Camilla now arrived not as a queen defending her crown, but as a woman betrayed by the only man she had believed would never turn his back on her. Her voice, usually measured and composed, was reportedly raw and desperate. She didn't mask her pain, she laid it bare. Her words came fast and frenzied, accusations laced with disbelief. She spoke of loyalty, of years spent navigating the jeers, the judgment, the weight of being accepted into a role history never truly wanted for her. She reminded him of the sacrifices she had made, the patience she had shown, the battles fought in silence to be by his side. And then, with trembling fury, she demanded to know why he had handed her legacy to the one woman she had always feared would eclipse her, Catherine. The name hung in the air like smoke, and Charles, unmoved by the storm before him, uttered only 4 words that would haunt her forever. "It's already been done." There was no warmth in his tone, no apology, just finality, cold, like stone. It wasn't rage that marked Charles in that moment, it was resolve. He had made his decision not as a husband, but as a monarch. To him, the future of the crown outweighed the comfort of the present. Camilla saw it then not just the loss of her duties, but the loss of her place beside him in the way it once mattered. And as she stood there, trembling in the room they once shared, memories of Diana surged like a tide. All those years spent climbing toward a throne shadowed by a ghost, and now history had repeated itself. Only this time, it wasn't a princess she was battling. It was a queen in waiting who had already won. Servants had been instructed earlier that morning to clear the rooms of unnecessary presence. They were told to disappear, to avoid eye contact, to leave space. The palace knew what was coming, and though the confrontation echoed through the private halls, no one dared move. It was Anne, stoic and unsentimental, who eventually intervened not with words of comfort, but with clarity. She reminded Camilla that dignity must prevail, that retreat didn't mean surrender, but preservation. Coming from Anne, it wasn't kindness. It was a lifeline. In the days that followed, Camilla vanished from the public eye. No official leave, no statement, just silence. Her aides issued polite declines to scheduled appearances. Her phone remained off. For a woman who had once wielded influence through presence, her absence now screamed with meaning. The queen consort was still queen in name, but in every way that mattered, she was no longer at the helm. Behind the stone walls of Clarence House, Camilla grieved not just a role, but a legacy rewritten without her consent. And while Camilla mourned the sudden fracture of power, Catherine was being briefed for her first true test. She didn't ask for it. But when duty called, Catherine stepped forward with calm precision. In that moment, she wasn't just filling a role, she was being shaped into something greater, the face of the monarchy's future. The first signs of the shift were quiet but unmistakable. Charitable patronages, once closely associated with Camilla, were quietly reassigned, no public handover, no official press release, just subtle changes to official calendars. Catherine began appearing in the spaces Camilla once commanded, and she did so not with spectacle, but with purpose. Her approach was never flamboyant. It was precise, elegant, and grounded in service. In a matter of weeks, she had absorbed the responsibilities of a queen consort without ever uttering the title. It was as though the crown itself had passed her the torch without ceremony, because the world already saw it burning in her hands. Behind the scenes, preparation accelerated. Catherine was no longer just a working royal, she was being groomed for sovereignty in everything but name. Meetings previously reserved for the king's closest confidantes now included her. She was briefed on international strategy by senior diplomats, given access to high-level correspondence, and walked through the intricacies of global protocol. Former aides who once served Queen Elizabeth were brought in to advise her, sharing insights shaped by decades of navigating the world stage. Catherine listened more than she spoke, but when she did, her words revealed a woman who understood the stakes and the burden they carried. Then came the visit to the War Memorial, a site intimately linked with past queen consorts and their symbolic role as guardians of national memory. Catherine arrived without fanfare, yet her presence reverberated far beyond the moment. What had once been tradition now felt like transition. Observers noted the quiet reverence with which she carried out the visit, not as a performance, but as a promise. A new chapter was being written, and she had stepped directly into its first page. Throughout it all, William remained steadfast by her side, not as a prince asserting control, but as a husband offering silent strength. His absence from commentary spoke louder than words. His confidence in Catherine's rise was absolute. He didn't need to explain or defend her. She was proving herself with every step, and though the shift in power left fractures within the family, it also forged unexpected bonds. Princess Anne, never one for sentiment, began to show signs of quiet alliance. Her approval wasn't declared, but it was present, in shared glances, in subtle nods, in the absence of disapproval. For a woman like Anne, that was as close to endorsement as one could ever hope to receive. But perhaps the most defining moment came behind locked doors, in a private chamber where Catherine received her first direct state briefing from King Charles. There were no cameras, no public applause, only the gravity of history settling between them. In that room, Catherine was not a daughter-in-law or a substitute for someone displaced. She was the woman the monarchy had chosen to trust. And as she sat across from the king, her posture steady, her eyes unblinking, a silent understanding passed between them. The transition had already begun, but the transformation wasn't over. The final stage would play out not in private, but before the eyes of the world, under the gaze of every camera. It was the moment no one believed would happen. Camilla and Catherine standing side by side, draped in symbolism and icy silence. But this time, the power balance was inverted, and every move told a story of quiet dethronement. For weeks, Camilla had been absent from the public eye, her name fading from headlines, her presence ghosted from official appearances. Yet now, by what some insiders whispered was an unavoidable directive from the king himself, she was forced to re-emerge for a high-profile state ceremony. The event, once expected to center on her role as queen consort, had become something else entirely. The moment she stepped from the car, the tone was set. Her smile faltered. Her posture, usually confident, was taut with restraint. What had once been her spotlight now belonged to someone else. Catherine's arrival followed moments later, but the difference in reception was thunderous in its subtlety. The cameras lingered longer. The crowd's cheer rose just a touch, louder. Even the security protocols, always rehearsed and deliberate, placed her steps squarely in the path of prominence. And then came the moment that shifted the entire narrative. Catherine was seated not alongside the lesser royals, but in the precise position traditionally reserved for the reigning queen consort Camilla's position. It wasn't a clerical error, it wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a message, and it was delivered without a single word spoken. Body language analysts exploded online within minutes. A silent coup, one called it. A repositioning without proclamation, another wrote. Camilla's jaw clenched through most of the ceremony. Her eyes rarely moved from the floor. Catherine, by contrast, radiated a quiet steadiness, not gloating, not boastful, but unmistakably composed. Every photograph captured the narrative shift. One woman retreating from relevance, the other stepping into destiny. And the world was watching, as if choreographed for maximum ambiguity. Charles delivered a short speech. He spoke of renewed commitment, of fresh beginnings, of a vision carried forward by those prepared to serve with grace and conviction. Names were never mentioned, but the context was impossible to ignore. Standing just meters apart, Catherine looked ahead while Camilla glanced sideways. There was no acknowledgement between them, no brief exchange, not even the politeness of protocol. What once simmered behind palace doors now played out under chandeliers and cameras, cloaked in civility but seething with finality. The headlines the next morning were relentless. Catherine rises as Camilla fades. Changing of the guard. A queen in all but name. International press joined the storm, many calling it the most symbolic reshuffling of royal hierarchy since Diana first outshone the throne. But where Diana's rebellion had come with heartbreak and fury, Catherine's ascent came with silence and precision. It wasn't a battle, it was an eclipse. Behind the glittering formality of the ceremony, the damage was irreparable. Whatever reconciliation might have once been possible had vanished. The monarchy had drawn its line not through decree, but through placement, posture, and the cold mechanics of visibility. Camilla had not been dethroned by scandal or vote. She had been quietly replaced by relevance, by favour, and by a royal future no longer built
If I
around
step
her.
back now,
And yet,
it
the
will
real
feel like
power
failure,
shift was still
he
brewing
said
in the private
quietly.
letters, hidden alliances, and one final royal act waiting to be unleashed. Camilla wrote it in the early hours, by candlelight. A letter
Perhaps
never
you're
meant
right,
to be
he
seen until it
whispered.
was.
They are ready.
Its
country
contents would
already
shake the foundations of the royal family, revealing wounds the crown had desperately tried to bury. It began as a private catharsis, a stream of unfiltered truth scribbled in the solitude of a woman who no longer recognized her place in the world she had once fought so hard to word. Enter. The ink trembled in places, the handwriting uneven, betraying the emotions she had long kept beneath the surface. In the letter, Camilla laid bare what the cameras never saw: her
child's
anguish,
there!
her disillusionment,
Careful.
and above all, her simmering sense of betrayal. She admitted to mistakes, yes, but it was the undercurrent of bitterness that clung to every line. She wrote of
And as
deep regret,
Catherine and William stood together,
not just for
hands
choices
clasped
made,
tightly,
but for how swiftly she had been discarded when her image no longer suited the palace's evolving narrative. She confessed her long-standing fear that Diana's ghost would never truly leave them, and
the
now,
moment that
in
was
her
meant to
own
mark the
words,
start of their
Catherine
new
has
chapter
become the
had
second
changed
shadow I cannot
everything.
escape. The parallels were too painful to ignore. Just as Diana had once captivated the world, now Catherine was
A few
commanding
tried
that
to
same
comfort
devotion.
Jane's husband,
And
who had been
Camilla,
standing
once
farther
cast
back.
as the survivor who
By the time
outlasted
William and
scandal,
Catherine stepped
now
inside,
stood as the reminder
Rose
of a
had already
monarchy
been taken
desperate
to
to
the emergency.
reinvent itself. She questioned whether she had ever been accepted at all or merely tolerated until someone more palatable could be found. But buried between expressions of sorrow were chilling accusations. Camilla hinted at betrayal from within, a name never mentioned but a figure
William remained
unmistakably
standing
described.
close by,
A senior
his
aide,
tone
once
quiet
loyal,
and steady.
allegedly funneled private details to Catherine's team strategies, talking points, advanced knowledge of Camilla's engagements. It was the sense of conspiracy that echoed loudest. The letter pulsed with suspicion,
Children
with
do
hurt,
that. They get
with the
excited,
realization that she had
especially
not
at
only
moments
been
like
outmaneuvered
these,
but
Catherine
perhaps
said, smiling
outnumbered.
faintly.
Then came
They
the
were
final
beautiful.
line, scrawled with a
while-
force that pressed through the paper. I was queen, in name only. It wasn't a resignation. It was an obituary. The words were both an admission and an indictment, a declaration that though she had
Next
worn the
time,
crown,
promise me you'll
she had
let your
never
mom
truly
stay
been
beside
allowed
you,
to wield
all
it.
right?
No one knows how the letter reached the press. It appeared in the inbox of a respected royal correspondent, unsigned, but authenticated through unmistakable handwriting. Within hours, it was front-page news across Europe and the Commonwealth. Analysts debated its implications. Commentators dissected its tone. Speculation swirled around who leaked it. Was it an act of revenge? A desperate cry for sympathy? Or a final blow from someone within the royal machinery who wanted the world to see the monarchy's hidden fractures? Charles offered no comment. Catherine remained silent. The palace moved swiftly to deflect, but the damage was irreversible. For the first time, Camilla's pain was no longer whispered behind palace doors. It was published, printed, and permanently archived in the court of public opinion. But even as the dust settled and the headlines calmed, one final twist ensured this would not be the end, but the beginning of a new royal war. Camilla may still hold her title, but power no longer answers to her name. With Catherine now carrying the weight of official duties, a new era has begun, but it may come at a cost no one is yet willing to pay. Within the gilded walls of Buckingham and Windsor, a silent divide has deepened between king and queen. No confrontations, no visible fractures, just an unspoken distance that those closest to them can no longer ignore. Charles, ever the institution's guardian, has thrown his weight behind the future. Camilla, though still draped in ceremony, now moves through the palace like a relic of a chapter hastily turned. Their public appearances have grown shorter, their private meetings fewer. What once was a united front now feels like two monarchs occupying the same stage with different scripts. And through it all, Catherine's shadow grows longer across the royal map. Foreign dignitaries have taken notice. In private corridors and closed-door summits, ambassadors and prime ministers speak less of the Queen Consort and more of the Princess of Wales. It is Catherine who now greets global leaders with confident fluency. It is her calendar foreign offices request first. Her name, once mentioned as a future figurehead, is now referenced in the present tense. Behind velvet curtains, discussions shift. The monarchy's public image is no longer a question of titles, it's about resonance, and Catherine's image resonates like no one else's. William remains her silent pillar. His support has never wavered, but even those closest to them acknowledge the shift in dynamic. With Catherine's role expanding rapidly, the demands on their marriage have intensified. They are no longer just partners in life, they are partners in legacy. He carries the burden of lineage. She now shoulders the mantle of expectation. Together, they are being forged into the monarchy's next embodiment, but at what cost to the intimacy that once defined them? Speculation has reached a fever pitch. Pundits and palace watchers whisper of abdication. Not tomorrow, perhaps, not even next year, but the machinery is moving. Charles, now in his twilight, may be quietly laying the groundwork for a ceremonial exit, one that allows the crown to pass to a new generation before crisis forces it. And Catherine, already performing in every sense but title, may soon find herself confronting the weight of a crown she never asked for, but can no longer avoid. The monarchy, meanwhile, holds its breath. For all its tradition, it is still a house built on perception. And perception has already crowned Catherine in the court of public opinion. Yet within that rise lies a quiet warning, because power in the House of Windsor has always come with a price. The same adoration that lifts one figure can shatter another, and though Camilla's fall may feel complete, history has shown again and again that the monarchy's chessboard never stops shifting. In the House of Windsor, nothing is ever truly final. Today's decision may define tomorrow's downfall, and one woman's rise may be another's reckoning. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.